In this video, we're going to go through interior framing of a basement wall. I'm going to show you various layouts for your studding, 12 inches, 16 inches, and 24 inches on center. I'm going to explain to you why you would use these various spacings. I'm going to show you how to anchor the floor to the wall, to the ceiling, and level it up. So let's get started. This is the section of wall we're going to be framing. From this stud here to this corner stud here, there's going to be a door approximately here. This is going to be the bedroom of the basement development. So let's get started. We've got to measure the length of the wall so that we can cut our top and bottom plate to the exact length that the wall is going to be. I've got my butt end of the tape at the start of our wall, and at the finish here I'm measuring 116.25 inches. So I'm going to measure out the top and bottom plate, and then we can get into some laying out of the studs and doorway. Okay, so this is going to be my top plate and this is going to be my bottom plate. The bottom plate is in contact with concrete. Whenever you're in those situations, you want to use pressure treated wood so that you are protected from rot. The top plate doesn't matter. It's going to stay dry. So I'm just going to begin by marking out my 116.25 on each of these. I like to use speed square to square across my line, across the whole piece of material, so it's easy to run your skill saw along it. And not such a big deal on a long piece like this, but when you're, I like to mark an X on the waist side so that you know which side you're keeping. When you're using shorter pieces, it's helpful to know which side you're actually going to use and which side is going to be garbage. Okay, so now that we've got our plates marked out, I'm going to begin by putting on my safety gear and cutting these down to length so that I can show you the layout next. Okay, now that you've got your wall plates cut to length, you're going to want to lay out your studding. As I mentioned earlier, there is 3 normal spacings for studding, which is a 12-inch on center, a 16-inch on center, and a 24-inch on center spacing. In my particular situation, I'm going to use a 16-inch on center, but for explanation purposes, I'm going to go through the 3 different ways for you. Okay. In this particular wall, I am going to have a doorway approximately here. For explanation purposes, I'm going to go through regular spacing for you at first and then show you how to measure out where to put the door in after. So our studding material is 1.5 inches thick. So that's very important because when we're making our indicator lines for placement of the studs, if we want our stud to land center of the 12-inch line, or center of the 16-inch line, or center of the 2-foot line, which we were doing, we need to subtract off half the thickness of the material so that we can put an indicator line there, which will create the center spacing for the studding. With your tape measure clipped on the end, to do 12-inch on center spacing or 1 foot on center spacing, you're going to find the 12-inch line, subtract back 3/4 of an inch, and mark a line. Then you're going to find the 2-foot line, subtract back 3/4 of an inch, mark a line. You're going to find the 3-foot line, subtract back 3/4 of an inch, make an indicator line. 4 foot line, mark back 3/4 of an inch, indicator line. 5 foot, mark back 3/4 of an inch, indicator line. Now, you are going to place your stud edge on this line, and to create its center, you want to place the stud on that side of the X. So I like to put a X indicating the side of the stud that I'm going to, or the side of the line that I'm going to put the studding on. Now that you've got that ready, you take your framing square, set up on the line, and mimic that line down below. So this piece of material is representing our studding material. Now that I've got the indicator line marked here and the X on that side, when I space my wall apart, I'm going to nail it on that side of the line. The bottom identically the same. And when you measure from the edge, you're hitting center marking for the 3-foot spacing. Go back here, you're hitting your 2-foot on center spacing. So that's how to lay out a wall on a 12-inch on center spacing. Okay, another on center spacing that is commonly used is a 24-inch on center spacing or a 2-foot on center spacing, which is the same. In this basement, I've used that over here. It is used to hold insulation of that size. Okay, so the layout for a 24-inch or 2-foot on center spacing is very similar to the 12-inch or 1-foot on center spacing. You're basically just going on 2-foot increments, so we've already got that marked. So you go 2 foot, measure back 3/4 of an inch, mark your line. You would go 4 foot, measure back 3/4 of an inch, mark your line. 6 foot, measure back 3/4 of an inch, mark your line. 8 foot, measure back 3/4 of an inch and mark your line. In 24-inch on center spacing, you do save some studding, obviously, but the wall is not as strong and is more susceptible to warping just because of the less material. Now I'm going to show you how to do a 16-inch on center spacing, which is the spacing I'm going to use for this wall. Clip your tape on the end, and again, find the 16, measure back 3/4 of an inch, mark your X. Find the 32, measure back 3/4 of an inch, mark your X. Find your 48, measure back 3/4 of an inch, mark your X. 64, measure back 3/4 of an inch, mark your X. 80, measure back 3/4, mark your X. 96, measure back 3/4, mark your X. 112, measure back 3/4, mark your X. Now there's no need to mark your start and your finish, and I'm not too sure if you've noticed, but 16 on center spacing is the most commonly used spacing, and it is indicated by most tape measures in a red or a different number, so it's quite easy to pick out, as you can see here with the 64, the 80, and the 96. Now that I've got my on-center spacing marked for my studding, I'm going to proceed with marking in a doorway to enter into the bedroom. In this particular layout, the door is going to be right here, swinging this way. What I like to do is find the edge of the wall on the inside of the wall, which is here. I'll put a mark there. And when you install your door, you're going to want some trim casing on the inside facing here. So you need to space off to allow for that casing around the door. I usually go with 3 to 4 inches. You can go with any size that you want if you know your trim size, if it's 2 1/4 inches or 3 inches or whatever. I go with 4 so it's nice and safe and I don't have any issues with it. So I start by finding that inside corner point, measure over 4 inches. Mark that line. The door is going to be from this line over, so I put the X on this side. Now here I'm going to put a 30-inch door in. I've checked with my door supplier to fit a 30-inch door into the opening. I need to go with a 32-inch wide opening. So I find a 32-inch, measure over, put that line. Again, the door width is on the inside, so the X will go on the outside. Put this, square that across, mark my X. Now to eliminate confusion of the lines, I like to indicate the door with different colors, so when I'm putting the studding in, I know which spots were for my door. So I've got a red felt marker. I'm going to mark this in. I'm going to rate the door size for the rough opening so there's no confusion. It's 32 inch by 80 inch tall. And again, this one is my other side. Now it's really good to put these extra colors and indicators down so that you don't get confused. These studs will obviously not go in because that's where the doorway is. And the height is 80 inches tall, so there will be some space above the door where I will use these indicator lines. So now that we've got our wall plates laid out for our stud spacing and doorway, we need to look at where we're going to attach the wall. At the start of the wall, I've got this existing wall that I'll be able to attach into. At the other side of the wall, I've got this corner stud that I'll be able to attach to. But up in the ceiling spaces, I have nothing. The wall is gonna float across this section here. So what I'm gonna do is put some blocking from this truss to this truss on a 2-foot on center spacing so that when the wall gets stood up, I've got somewhere to anchor it to. Okay, to solve the problem for attaching the wall at the top, I need to install some backing for it between the TGI joists. I'm going to proceed by measuring the width between here. I've got 16 5/8. Mark it down. I've got a piece pre-cut just so I can show you how it's going to fit in. So just like that, will get attached through here, and on the opposite side, and then the wall will get attached up into it. This also creates drywall backing on this side of the wall and this side of the wall so that the drywall has something to be firmly attached to. I'm gonna lay out from this edge down that way on a 2-foot on center spacing. I'm not gonna get carried away with reducing off the increments because this material is so wide. I will just be marking 24 inch and putting a line and eyeing this piece in. So seeing as I'm by myself working, I need someone to hold the tape measure on this opposite edge here. But you can replace that with a screw, something to attach my tape measure to. Just like that. Clip my tape on that and I'm ready to go. 24, 48, 6 feet, 8 feet and one on the corner. Now I've got all the blocking cut to size. I'm going to show you how to install it into the joist spacing here. If you're having troubles getting it to stay, you can start a screw. All right, now that's installing the blocking in with screws. You can also use nails if you want, or a pneumatic air nailer. Another method of installing the blocking in the joist spaces above would be a pneumatic nailer. Got one here. With the pneumatic nailer, you're gonna wanna make sure you have your eye protection on at the very least. I like eyes and ears protected. Go up, put it on your indicator line, line up the nailer and go. There we go. Now that's in there good and tight. Something solid to anchor the wall to. Okay, now that we've got our backing installed at the top and we've got our floor at the bottom, we're gonna measure for our stud lengths. One way to measure for your stud lengths would be to measure off the floor, right to the backing, subtract off the thickness of this material. A more precise way that I prefer to use is to lay the top and bottom plate in position, measure off that top to the blocking so that you don't have to do any subtracting. It'll just give you your stud length right away. And there we go, 92 5/8. (92 5/8). One last spot. 92 5/8. I'm going to count out how many studs I need. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Skipping this one. 8, 9, and I also need an extra one in the corner for corner backing, which will happen right in here, and I'll explain that as I'm nailing this wall together. All right, now that we've got our final stud cut, stack it over here with the others. I'm going to clear this space here, spread these wall plates apart, and begin to place my studding in the approximate positions. Now I'm going to begin to put these studs in. All right, now we're approximately laid out with the studding here. I've left the last two out here because I want to nail those together in a different manner before I put them in. So when you're attaching one wall like this one to an existing wall, you want to have corner backing for the drywall. A common way to do that is to take two 2x4s for your stud length and attach them together in this manner. Now that you've got those two pieces of wood attached together, you're going to install it into your wall in this positioning. By doing that, when you stand your wall up against this other wall, by making the L shape, we've got 1.5 inch material that sticks past here. That will allow this drywall to go through and attach on this side, and this drywall to come through and attach on this side, creating an inside corner backing. Okay, now that you've got all your studs in rough position, cut to length, you're ready to assemble your wall together. Now, there's 3 choices for assembly. I've been using the pneumatic nailer, which is quite fast to put a wall together, and if you've got a lot of framing to do, you definitely want to increase your speed. Another method is just plain old hammer, some nails, as well as a drill and screwing them together. So whichever you'd like to go with is all fine. Some benefits to screwing is if you've made a mistake, you can easily correct it. I'll start by showing you that. Got my stud right on the indicator line. This is where it's very helpful to have your X there as well, so you know which side of the stud is going to. For a 2x4 wall, I like to use 2 screws per end. If I was framing with 2x6, I would use 3. 2x8, I would use 4. So as you go up in spacing, you just add a fastener per every 2 inches. All right, and that's hand screwing it together. Again, if I found that I did something wrong, quite easy to hook back onto it, back it out, make your adjustment, put it back in. Another method is hammer and nails. Got the stud on the X side of the indicator line. Start your nail. Now again, with this setup, if I needed to make a correction, it would be quite hard. I'd have to bang the wall apart, get some sort of crowbar to get those out. So if you're just starting to do stuff around your place, it's probably better to use the screws. And there we go, that's 2 methods. Gonna finish it off with the pneumatic nailer, which is quite a bit faster. And here we go. I'm just going to shove this way a little bit. Did those two? A lot of times studs are warped and twisted as they dry. As you're nailing them together, you got to do your best to get them into position by twisting them back into straight and putting a fastener into it. There you have it. The wall's put together with the studding in. Got my doorway framed out there. All that's left to do is put the top in for the door and then stand the wall and attach it to the existing backing that I've got all the way through. Check the level, and then we'll proceed with anchoring these walls down to the concrete floor. Now that you've got your studding in place here, going back to the original rough opening size for the door, which is 32 inches by 80 tall. Measure off the bottom of your wall, mark your 80 inches. Again, putting an X to the side that the stud is going to go. Use your square that across, square that to the other side. X, square, square. Okay, so I'm going to cut a piece of wood to go across here, which will finish off my opening for the door, 32 inches wide by 80 inches tall. Then I've also got 2 studs to put in above the door for drywall backing, and we should be ready to stand it. Now I don't know the exact length of the studs that are going to be above the door. I could do some math and figure it out, but I'd much rather cut this, put it in place, measure the next 2, and cut those. Okay, I'm going to screw these ones just because I got some warped wood. It's going to help pull it in tighter. I'll put 2 more in once I've stood the wall and can get at the other side. Okay, following with our existing 16 on center layout are these indicator points here. I need to put 2 in here to add. So again, measuring off the edge, 15 1/4, 31 1/4, 15 1/4, X, 31 1/4, X. Square those across. Now measure for length. All right, I've got 12 inches, 5/8, and 12 inches, 5/8. All right, there you have it. Finished wall, ready to go. Got the inside corner backing, got the rough opening for the door, got my 16 on center stud spacing. Okay, so now that you've got your wall approximately in position, on your line down on your floor, this wall, existing wall that I'm tying into, I know is level. I'm going to double check it, nail these two together. Then I'm going to come to this far corner, level this corner, and then come on this side and attach down through. Then I will install a nail into each one of these blocks, and that will be a finished, ready to go wall. Okay, that's perfect. All right. Now you got your wall firmly in place. Let's do the last couple checks on it. Make sure you're happy with everything. That's great. Perfect. Perfect. Looking good. And looking good. Just gonna finish off by nailing into the blocking. All right, and that's finished wall. Ready to move on to the next step. My choice for anchoring down to the wall would be wedge anchor nail, which is a fluted concrete nail. They recommend you use a 3/16 inch bit, which is slightly smaller than this nail. You would drill the hole to the depth that you need and use your hammer to pound this down in, and that will anchor it down to the concrete floor. So to anchor our wall down to the floor, we are using a drilling method into the concrete floor. If you've got electrical lines or heated concrete floors or anything like that where you're not sure and you might hit something that's in the concrete, you could use concrete adhesive or any construction adhesive. You would apply a bead the length of the wall and then stand your wall up on top of that. After 24 hours or so, that wall would be glued down to the floor enough to carry on with your project. To avoid drilling too deep to the wall, I like to take my nail, put it against the bit, mark myself an indicator line to stop the drilling, and that way I'm not drilling too far through the floor. It's just better construction practice to do it this way. Now that I've got my bit marked, safety gear on, take my concrete drill. Okay, so that drill bit is brought down to my indicator line. Now I'm going to proceed with reaming out the hole a few times to bring out the extra debris and such that's inside there. Take your concrete nail. There we go. Wall's nice and firm. Can't move it a bit. Okay, now this wall is firmly attached to the concrete, firmly attached to the other wall, across the ceiling, and to the other corner. Got your doorway framed in, and your 16-inch on-center spacing. Everything looks good. You're ready to move on to your next wall.